Welcome to this episode of the Leadership Speak series at L Forum. Today I have the pleasure of inviting an ex-colleague of mine and the CEO of Hype Luxury, Raghav Belavadi. Hi Raghav, welcome to the show.
Hi Raghav, nice to see you.
Nice to see you Raghav, and I hope I got your last name right. Is it Belavadi or is it Belavadi?
Belavadi.
Belavadi. Okay, sorry about that. So Raghav, you have a very interesting and exciting journey so far. So without further ado, I would love you to tell us and the audience your journey from being a technologist to what you do right now.
All right. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to talk to the other side of the ocean and to an ex-colleague. It's nice catching up. I did my BE in engineering, mechanical. And of course, I'm just a regular guy. Even in my college days, also I was not the top of the art or anything. The opposite of it is the whole of the batch got absorbed somewhere in their campus selection, except for me. So I thought like I must be either way too special or completely there's no for my kind of profile at all. But then those days, a father wouldn't give his daughter if you're not in the US. So I started applying for my master's. Yeah, by the time the master's fever was over my head, I had already got admission and I was in Penn State for my master's. But then I knew that this is not my forte. The moment
so you are a Nittany lion.
I know I'm just nobody today that I'm even so scared of going record saying this because I just abruptly ended. But actually I got picked up by Mr. Raju and by Satyam. So at that time Satyam was a startup and I didn't know what is the startup. I knew that it's a small business and it's like it's a software company and blah blah blah. I said like, look, I don't know coding. I'm a mechanical engineer. So he said like, no, we'll find some. So I got into Satyam, but that was not really. I was not coding or anything. And I tried to get into some classes where they were teaching B, C++ and C++ way over my head. And because I came from Mr. Raju's reference, they had to put me somewhere, and they put me into testing. And I did great testing because I was good at finding faults in the product, anything that they would build, and I can be a really mess if I start finding faults in products. And they said like, okay, so there's no future for these guys. And one last attempt was to put him into Japanese class. So we used to have a Japanese lady who would come down and teach Japanese language for us. And then I loved learning languages. As somebody from South India, you know that we naturally learn 2-3 languages by default. All of the South Indian languages, and plus we will be learning at some point in Hindi and English comes naturally. So you're already 4 or 5 languages on top of it. So Japanese became a very dear friend of mine because nobody else was sitting and eating lunch, dinner with me because I didn't code. But then soon I figured out that in 6 months I passed level 4, then level 3. In 1 year I passed level 2, and I went to level 1. And then Satyam decided that this is way too much speed, so they sent me to Japan. So I became a pretty successful manager. From software engineer, you can imagine that in 2 years I became an account manager, handling Japanese clients. So I didn't handle anything technology-wise, and so was with Wipro and Dentsu projects, and so was with Infosys, as you know, with Oki and most of the. I helped them to stabilize clients. I could develop extraordinary rapport with the Japanese clients. I did whatever I did, but then I was never a person who would do coding or anything. My last corporate job was as a global head for financial services outsourcing at Accenture. And even there was more of a senior leadership role as a group CEO, and you take care of 6-7 countries, 7,000-8,000 people. It's a large account, so more of a client relationship communication, typical consulting one. So I was based out of Switzerland and Toronto, had a very good run for 6 years. Then again, I think because you asked me that question, like, how do I describe myself? I think there are people on this planet when they wake up from their bed every morning, if they don't have a huge challenge to chase or a goal to chase, I think they would just get into depression on the day. After like 25 years, I figure out that that could be somebody like me if I really want to profile myself. If I don't have something really big, motivating to chase on a day morning, that day would go nuts for me. I would be really like a panda, hanging my head, do nothing, and I just don't do anything. So that kind of challenge, no role in no corporate can offer, not even startups, forget about it, right? So the only one place where you can go and put your head into a mess is becoming an entrepreneur and try to shake up something and try to create something. Because when you're creating something, you are going to run in innumerable amount of cycles of experiments. You fail and you get up, you fail and get up. So my natural inclination, organically, my growth pattern in my career was to get into entrepreneurship. My first startup went bankrupt, not a surprise. And the second one, we did very good, made an exit. But all the way, I lived in Switzerland and most of the times in Europe my entire career. So whenever I came back to India, I wanted to drive decent cars, and there were no cars available for self-drive, let alone be decent cars. So I was really annoyed. And I thought like, well, in today's world, all it takes is you build an app and put some cars onto this, and I should be able to rent cars for myself to find a vendor. We did that, and that was really a simple, silly idea that how we wanted to do that out of Bangalore, which has led us to become a global company today. And somebody who was interviewing me last week, they said, I think you should stop calling yourself as a startup. You're an enterprise now. I don't know whether that's a good news or not, but I think, yeah, after 5 years, you're no longer a startup. You have to start behaving like an enterprise. So that's my journey. So technology was barely there on the outer lines, but my passion was more into communication and creating something. I love creating products. I love making it more customer savvy. I think that passion, that drive has got into this funnel, and somehow I think the natural path was to get into entrepreneurship.
Which kind of segues me into the next question, Raghav. What has been your learning on? You worked with a lot of luminaries. You took some names as well, some very senior leaders in the corporate world, the IT world. What has been your learning in terms of leadership in this journey of yours so far?
That's a great question. I have worked with, let's say, I started my learning basically out of college. First learning was with Mr. Raju, who was the founder of Satyam. And then I worked very closely. My next stint was with, I would say I was really fortunate, and you know that we could sit and eat lunch, snacks with Mr. Murthy. It's not that I would sit next to him and ask him for some tidbits about management or anything, but just observing him was very good enough, because the total strength of Infosys was around 9,000 people in Electronic City, and we would run into each other and I can observe him. I was account manager, I was called into a lot of board meetings or presentations. I could observe these leaders, Mr. Nandan Neelakanth. So that was a heavy duty learning for me. And then I was very closely working with Mr. Fanish Murthy. But when I got into Accenture kind of companies, I had to literally keep that in my mind and run my own show, because you are also like one of the CEOs for handling real large accounts. Then all of your learning has to be put into practice, but some of them you just cannot apply some of them because they're outdated, they don't fit into consulting organizations. Some of them you could do very well. So I think the best takeaway for me after I entered into entrepreneurship was no matter how much you want to jump around, how much you want to be over enthusiastic, over energetic to become unicorn and all of that, at the end of the day, hot gas will go away sooner or later. And that's something that the startup world, especially in India, doesn't understand yet. But that's why I follow some of the great leaders like Mr. Narayan Murthy by himself, or some of my best CEOs at Accenture also. That I think if you want to build a global business, I'm a big time follower of Mr. Mukesh Ambani. If you want to really build a global conglomerate, a global business, you have to look at 40, 50 years from now, because you're trying to build something that doesn't even exist. I think your abrasion in your management style, the kind of friction you go through, is more the moment you start looking more longer term. Anybody can give you a VC pitch for 3 years, 4 years, and they can show this much friction, and that friction will come and go away. But the moment you set your eyes for 30, 40 years, that friction are a lot more daunting, denting. It won't go away so easily when it comes, but you have to keep at it regardless of it. And so you need to keep it steady. It's very easy to keep it steady for 2-3 years, and then you become a unicorn, and then you lose your head and do all of the things. The startup will happen. But then I had to think like, no, I'm not a startup, and I'm trying to build the next global business. So for that, I need to have a different head altogether. So my startup lesson became suddenly of no use for me in my current startup. So I don't call this as a startup now. So having your head in its place, go as steady as you can. We have been all misled by speed and break and all of these things. It just doesn't work like that. Even if it works, it's really kind of a over the weekend kind of a goal. If you want to really build a true business and a long-term sustainable business, a more profit-focused for your stakeholders kind of business, you need to adopt a completely different strategy for that. And these things won't help you in the long run. And you can't switch the track from startup track to enterprise track so easily. No, you can't do that because it's not so easy. So from the beginning, when we set our foot into the luxury market, we knew we adopted and we behaved how Rolex would behave or how Oberoi hotel chains will behave, whether it's marketing strategies or how they treat their customers. Everything we had to get in. We had to go. Today we have a boardroom at Oberoi in Bangalore, MG Road. The reason being that we want to constantly imbibe how they keep reinforcing on those practices, customer orientation, customer focus. And that's very, very imperative for us. I think I would say going steady and be a lot more rock solid is probably the most valuable lessons that I've learned from all these leaders, which are applicable now more than ever in my own entrepreneurial journey.
Lovely. Very, very insightful. And I think I will resonate very strongly with this slow and steady concept because, I really respect and I salute those startups which have kind of taken the fast track and they've done very well. And they are, I would believe, exceptions than the rule. The rule is typically, it is a long and hard grind. And that's been my experience in numerous podcasts that I've had. And I had the privilege of having Mr. Shibulal in one of the podcasts in the past. So you're part of the same group now. So Shibu had similar things to say. So it's not like, you wake up one morning and say, hey man, I've got this great idea. And the next day the VC shows up with a check. It doesn't happen that way. I wish it does. It doesn't. So thank you so much for that insight. Which kind of drives me to the next question. What has been your view or learning as an entrepreneurial leader? How has it been different from being a corporate leader?
That's a very good question. I think jumping from it's very easy to switch your corporate to an entrepreneur journey when you're in your 20s because you are exposed to the corporate skin. You have technically no responsibilities and you can jump and start something, and if it doesn't work, you can get back. You could do all this, bric-a-brac when you're in your 20s. Let's say if you spend 20 years in corporate, especially in some top management, and you want to switch over, first of all, you're not in competition with the 20-year-old entrepreneur because that's a different story altogether. You have learned a lot of skills in corporate. You have managed huge teams, probably very big revenue. Any of the volatility is automatically taken by your support team, your brand. You don't have to face all those the bric-a-brac directly with the system inside or outside. But when you are in a startup, you are in a street fight. Whether you like it or not, so it's dog eats dog. Whether you want to participate or not, that's the world we are in, right? So you have to adopt that agility also. You have to imbibe that, accept that. You could still use your corporate strategy. I could still put my CMMI level or black belt skill. So it won't just help me. That's it. Now I need to be more agile and more customer delivering rather than putting processes and building more documentation. So it's a different goal altogether. So corporate experiences will help you to get your head in place. If you have at least, let's say, 15, 20 years of experience, any entrepreneur who comes out of 15, 20 years of corporate experience has done a great job. Be it the Sequoia's managing director, Mr. Rajan Anandan, or Microsoft managing director, you can take any of them. When they became entrepreneur, they were garnering a lot more respect, and they had their head in place because they could handle a mega ton ship compared to a small startup kind of an attitude. I think that attitude is very difficult to get in market. So when I jumped into entrepreneurship, I knew that, okay, so I can handle this. No matter how much it goes out of control, I can handle this. And the biggest revelation, if I can make in today's call, was I was not so obsessed with VCs. I think that's something that I reiterate in all the institutions, schools, and wherever I get a chance to speak. It's good to have VCs. I don't mean to say that. I mean, we also have family offices. We also have institutional investors. But you cannot just get obsessed to do everything and turn the wheel only for VCs when you wake up. No, you just can't do that. And somebody has to assess the risk. They just don't know the boardroom battles and how it's the power struggle. You really don't know when you're in your 20s. That's a huge advantage for somebody who is 15, 20 years into corporate. When it comes to you cannot be a pushover. So people can't shake you up in the board because they'll have a tough time. That's one of the key reasons that VCs don't prefer startups where your entrepreneurs are from huge corporate background, because they know that this guy is not going to listen to us. There's no control. He's going to take more steady approach than break and burn approach. It's a whole methodology. It's a whole. It's a paradigm shift for VCs. Whereas for an entrepreneur like me, I think it's a completely different ballgame. And also, I don't spend too much time or waste too much time thinking about how can I pitch to bring in a VC. And I would rather focus on how do I build my business, take it to more countries. And we went to 3 countries when we were bootstrapped, so that takes a lot of grit and commitment from our entrepreneurs. I think it's worth trying, So now we are funded, now we are going great in all angles. But I think as an entrepreneurship, basic fundamentals of an entrepreneur should be: have you thought about in 10, 15, 20 years, where is your business going to be? Is it going to really crack now, or is it a band-aid, or is it going to stay there for 15, 20 years? If you can answer that question, whether it's going to get acquired or whether you're going to stay there as a business, it doesn't matter. As long as it can add value to the human race for next 15, 20 years, I think that's really there's a business. Otherwise, I think we're talking about a gaming challenge.
Beautiful. I love that. And that insight about when you come from a large corporate, it's a very different insight. I hadn't heard that before. I never thought of it in that angle, which is why this whole L Forum makes so much fun. Raghav, we bring in entrepreneurs like you. For me, it's like sitting in class, honestly, sitting and listening to you. I'm listening and I'm resonating with my own experiences and my own challenges. So I have the enviable position of sitting in the ringside and watching all of this. So thank you for that insight. My next question is going to be a little more of a revelation again. What have been your challenges as an entrepreneurial leader? I'm sure there are many, but what can you really say which are something unique to what you have seen, which you could share with the world?
Well, I think here is where the split is. I told you, one of my candid submission was that I'm a person who would create and break and create things on my own. That's suitable for a startup scale. But I come from corporate where you're not allowed to make too many mistakes, and you have to go, have the reins in your hand. You need to go steady. But now it's your personality against the environment. So my personality is like, I want to go fast, break and do things. I don't care. Even on the day of the release, I will make a U-turn on the product and start building all over again. And I don't mind doing that because I want it to be perfect. Whereas from an industry startup point of view, you are very close. You have made some marketing investments. You can't do that. So there is an enemy within. This is like the darker side of the moon. So there's one side which is like really cool, which allows your corporate side, like, no, I think we have made a process. We are going step by step, and you can make this defect in the next, and you could go all of this. And the entrepreneur would wake up and say, no, I'm like the next Steve Jobs. I can't have a defect product in the market. Let's go all over this again. So this becomes a conflict. So what happens is you will be fighting with yourself on probably very regularly as an entrepreneur. But what happens is your own fighting with yourself becomes more visible to your team, to your stakeholders, and they think that you're kind of some kind of off. You can try convincing them, saying that even the biggest brains like Einstein was once called as crazy, and quotes on Steve Jobs quotes and all of that. But at the end of the day, that's the struggle. You want to do something, you want to do it the way you want it, whereas your acquired experience for 2 decades are completely different, and your team around you has a problem seeing your holistic picture. And out of 100, probably 2 or 3 would get it. Either they would be just blindly thinking about this guy is some kind of guru, just follow him, that he's going to be right eventually, or they really believe and see through your ideas. And the rest of the firm is like, well, let's just hang in there because we're part of the team, and we have salaries, we have a job. They don't have to really get the buy-in. But that's the struggle for an entrepreneur. I'm speaking about myself, and that's somebody like me. I mean, today, I'm sure you're a lot more capable than me, but tomorrow if you want to start an entrepreneurship all by yourself from scratch, and that's the dilemma, the struggle that you would go through. Like, I want to do it this way because I know it's right. I won't allow it. There's 2 personas within yourself that are conflicting. I think that's the key challenge that I have. As I said, if I don't have a huge challenge when I wake up in the morning, that day is disgusting for me. But sometimes what happens is you go and break and create problems. It's like earlier in our career days, we would get fired if you're a problem creator. But today the problem creators have a different designation because of Steve Jobs. If you're a misfit, if you're a problem creator, we welcome you. I don't know whether people believe it, but they sell this as a slogan. But people around you, especially people around me, have left ruthlessly because I had this attitude. I still have this attitude, like okay, this is not okay. Let's just do it all over again. You can be obsessed with whatever it is you want, whether it's product or customer or market or whatever it is. And you think this is right, and others will feel that, well, he thinks that only he's right all the time, and our suggestions don't matter. So what happens is gradually people will start fading away from your team. To get that balance, you can't run the company all by yourself. You can have all of this crazy mind by yourself, but you need a team to go to the war. So that balance is the biggest challenge. Now you can't let go of your attitude, your DNA, but that DNA holistically won't be accepted, cannot be accepted by mortals around you, right? so that's
I think you make a wonderful point. And well, you were mentioning, I think you put it in a very different way about that big goal that you need every morning. I think some entrepreneurs, I've heard them say, need to have a clear purpose. Like, I have a very clear purpose as to why I'm in business and what my vision is. In fact, at some level, my favorite term from my old business school days is the BHAG, as they call it, right? The big, hairy, audacious goals. Unless you have a big, hairy, audacious goal, you will not blow through some of your small problems that I don't have gas in my car, I don't have my membership, I don't have suit to wear for a meeting. These are the things that you will find for not doing something big. But if, let's say, you set yourself a big, hairy, audacious goal, all of this you'll blow through. You'll find a way to do it. So, I think that is a hallmark of every entrepreneur, successful or not, is that they have this big, hairy, audacious goal to go after. Some win and some don't. But even in the journey of trying to win this, I think you stand more enlightened, more humbled, and more knowledgeable and happier. And I think that is a very unique journey. Like, I had the other day another entrepreneur who said that I wouldn't trade this for anything, for any amount of money, because this experience, this sense of exhilaration is so heady. It's almost like, you're on some kind of drug, basically. So it's very heady. And I'm fortunate that I'm a very small speck in that journey, and I love to catch up with people like you who have made far more progress and share your valuable experiences with us. Which brings me to the last question. Would love you to share some of your suggestions or ideas, advice to people who are starting off or who are already started off. What would your advice or suggestions be to them?
I'm not there. I'm still going along in my journey. But most of the valid points you've already put it across. I think it's very important to think big. You might be wrong in idea, execution, anything, but you can not go wrong in thinking big. So I think thinking big automatically will get you enough momentum and move out of your initial inertia, because you have a big goal to chase and a big stuff to be done. It's like your final exam, not some kind of a weekly test or something. So the moment you start preparing yourself for a big audacious, naturally every day you will make one step progress. You will start looking to other countries as geographical presence, resources, and opportunities. Without your knowledge, you are actually already thinking global. I think thinking big need not be global, don't get me wrong, but I think thinking audacious, as you said, is the number one reason for an entrepreneur to exist. And they should, I think, they are basically entrepreneurs as seekers, so they should find their purpose in that. Small problems, big problems, whatever it is, audacious need not be the size and volume of your dollar value. Audacious can be your level and intensity of the problem that you're trying to solve also. It could be a very problem, but in a country like India, maybe this problem can never be solved for whatever socio-economic, religious, whatever condition it is. But if you're chasing that, to change that, that's a very audacious goal. Starting from a freedom fight until now, everything has always been very personal for us, and it's an audacious goal for us, no matter what and how it looks like. And that's definitely my number one point to go. My second and the last point is, no matter what, the bigger the dream, your purpose, more difficult it is, and you will rub off too many people in that journey. I think you shouldn't just worry or get scared or anything, because that's a natural course. So what we don't hear in today, what we don't celebrate is people's learning and failures. We celebrate more of funding news and unicorns and how you look super cool on a podium. I think there is a lot more can be learned from people who are struggling to solve a real problem. It could be anything from health workers to the tech project. I think if you take your own self into those positions, connect with them, I think you're doing a wonderful job, because it gives opportunity for people to get that idea from all different angles. I think I wholeheartedly support and encourage things like that, because it's a platform to disseminate such point of view is really important that entrepreneurs get it. Otherwise, we all would like to be born and die in TEDx and TechCrunch, which is not the only word. It has to get insights and look into platforms such as yourself, which is doing a great justice to the entire ecosystem and to the community. So have as big as a goal as you can to solve the problem, and come what may, never be afraid of anything. It can go to any extent, but just go undeterred always.
Excellent, Raghav. Thank you so much for your wonderful insights, and thank you for your time. I wish you and Hype all success and happiness in the years to come. And like I said, this is a forum for entrepreneurial leaders. Yeah. And you're part of the family now. We'd love you to participate more actively and give us your suggestions. And we will hopefully try and bring you back when we have maybe similar interactions. This group is meant for entrepreneurs, academics, students, professional leaders. So basically, we are trying to understand this nuance called entrepreneurial leadership, which I believe is a very unique form of leadership. And I think it's still a very young area of study even in the academic world. And so I'm very excited about it. So thank you for your time, and
Thank
looking
you.
forward to staying in touch.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. You have a great day, Ringa.
Thank
Nice
you.
connecting with you. Take care. Bye.
Like, share, and subscribe to the EL Forum channel. Click the link below to enjoy the full video.